One of the best ways to grow and improve is to learn from your mistakes. But I reckon there's an even better way to do it, and that's learning from someone else's mistakes. So this episode, we'll be going through common money errors to make sure you don't fall into some of those traps. That's today on Money and a Good Life. Now, I don't know about you, but I never, ever, ever, ever make mistakes, which is why we're talking about common money mistakes other people make. And to help me, I've got Ryan Watson, my co-host, with me. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Steph. How are you? I'm married, so I'm told I make mistakes all the time. So, yeah.
I reckon your wife's right on that one.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks, Steph.
I'm already taking her side. And also with me is Tribeca's Andrew White. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Now, I think it's fair to say that we're all perfect here, correct?
We try.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to share a couple of mistakes I've made. I get ripped off on eBay all the time. All the time. Like if I'm going on eBay, I'm going to go get ripped off. But I think my favorite one was when I went to go buy juggling balls because I was like, I hear it's good for cognition or whatever, helps your brain. And I bought a premium juggling ball and they sent me one. So I didn't buy juggling balls. I bought juggling balls, singular. And I was like, I couldn't have even have imagined that someone would do that to me. And what is the margin on juggling balls that they?
What did they sting you for a juggling ball?
It was like $14, and I was like, so which is reasonable for three.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, but anyway, so that was a fleece. And I also this is a bit more embarrassing, but frequently when I buy hotels or something when I'm traveling overseas, do not ping sometimes that USD and AUD. Made that mistake a couple of times. That's a painful one.
That's literally a costly mistake.
Yeah. That is a costly one. Okay, so there we go. That's my one. Ryan, what's a money mistake you've made?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on this, Steph. I reckon it's about 15, 16 years ago, and I was working in Richmond, and I went to go and get my car at lunchtime or something like that. A couple of guys in a van pulled up, and they said, we're delivery guys. We're delivering speakers, and they've given us a double order. So if you've got some cash, we could sell them to you. And I fell for it, hook, line and sinker. Needless to say, the speakers never worked.
Wow.
It was an expensive mistake.
That's so funny though.
That's so dumb, Steph.
It's amazing that that's a scam out there.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
But I reckon a few people would have fallen for that.
Well,
because
after that, I did some homework after that, and yeah, it was not quite common, but common enough. And I fell for it.
I mean, because it's such a, for them, they only have to pull it off once every 100 people, but
exactly.
If they do.
They got me. They even bought the speakers into the house for me, got the cash.
Oh, they're such nice guys.
I actually had cash at home, so it was like the perfect, and I never do.
Yeah.
It just worked. So, yeah, that was...
Maybe, here's a take. Maybe they were actually nice, honest guys and the speakers just happened to be broken and, it was just a big mistake. I don't think that's the case. Okay, Andrew, what about you? What's a money mistake you've made?
I get done all the time on the free offers. So the subscription services, 2 months free and then you'll start paying. And I can't help myself. I got done by Uber One just the other day. So they've been consistently offering me 1 month free, and I was like, no, I know what you're trying to do. I'm going to avoid it. But then 4 months free last week. Couldn't help it.
Four months was your threshold.
That's
one, two,
right.
three.
Exactly right. So I'm in now, and I know what's going to happen.
No one is immune.
No one is immune. Even this room of intellectual giants. Now, Andrew, obviously it's common to make a little mistake, maybe getting scammed or ripped off or online. But what are some of the more common money mistakes you see in your line of work? Yeah,
so look, I think a big one that we see all the time is just not being across your money. So, being in a situation where you're not interested in it or it's not your thing, so you kind of just let things happen. And it might be in a relationship or it might just be by yourself. We see it all the time where, there's one person who's a CFO in the relationship and they're taking the running and the other party, maybe it's just not that into it. So not really across what's happening. So, I think it's just one of those things that we don't talk about enough, both in relationships and more broadly. That's where you seek your information and that's where you can get a little bit of that stuff back and make the right choice.
So it's almost like a big mistake you see, Andrew, is people put their money on ignore.
Yep. Exactly right.
They put it on ignore and they hope for the best.
That's right. Or they, without realising, hand that responsibility to somebody else.
And it's funny, I think that's not, obviously that's something that seems to be common in relationships, but I think that just ignoring your finances and just living in the day-to-day and not having even like half an eye on the horizon. That's actually my, forget the juggling balls, that's embarrassing. But my big mistake, my ongoing mistake is just sort of not projecting far enough in the future, because it's so much easier to not think about it until it isn't. Now, I'm making generalizations here, but when it comes to relationships, do you find that it's often more the woman in the relationship than the man in the relationship who will take the backseat financially? Yeah,
generally speaking, that's the case. Yeah, so the female in the relationship will take the backseat and leave those big money decisions to the male. And not always the case, of course, but generally speaking. And that can be really difficult, I guess, if there's a relationship breakdown down the line. It's not something you like to see, because then there's no understanding of the situation, the asset base and all those sort of things, and it can leave you in a really tough spot. And there's some really simple things you can do to get around it. Just keeping yourself current, maybe having a sit down on a quarterly basis or a half yearly basis. And it's something that we find as advisors that we can really help with. I think if we have that structured meeting, once a year, and it makes sure everyone comes along for the journey. We get a run through of income, assets, things like that. It's not complicated, doesn't take long, but it just keeps it front of mind. It's like you were mentioning earlier. If you don't have your eye on the ball, you're not going to get it.
And I think that if you're not in a relationship, again, just having a check-in with your own finances, where is it going? How's your cash flow going? Like, is there more coming in or then going out, or is it the other way around? Do you need to make some changes?
Yeah, exactly.
And just on that, Steph, if you've got the self-discipline, accountability and structure, you could absolutely do that with yourself, or potentially you could team up with something like a money buddy. You might have somebody else who's single as well, so you create that structure and discipline between the two of you, and maybe go out for dinner once a month or something like that, and share some money stories and share that structure as well.
I love that as an idea. I think that's really fun, because again, that means it's not a chore. It means you get to hang out with a friend, and ideally someone who is financially responsible and is and you're ready to both bring each other up. That would be really nice.
Exactly. And the opportunity to share the wins and share the learnings. And there's vulnerability in that. And, not everyone's going to have the perfect financial month. But if you were to share that, there's some compassion, there's some understanding in that. And we're normalising more money conversations.
And it's also kind of interesting. Who doesn't want to know what's going on behind someone else's bank account? That'd be fun.
That's your real angle, isn't it, Steph? You want to get into the transactions.
The truth is, I'm such a snoop. I'm such a snoop. I want to know what other people are doing. Let's bring out the bank account. Let's do that. That's a fun night for me.
Okay. So is there a friend in mind, Steph?
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends who I could definitely do that with. Is it something that you might practically? Yeah, genuinely. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, because I've got a couple of, and because, I'm in the arts, a lot of my friends are in the arts, and we kind of, media and whatnot. It's a fluctuating business, you've got, and it's quiet for a lot of people. So I think that the pressure for a lot of people I know in the industry is a lot of work has dried up, and you feel like you are the only person in the whole wide world who isn't getting work when it's happening to you. And as soon as you start talking about it, it's like, oh, it's quiet for me. And you're like, oh, okay, it's not that suddenly I'm bad at my job and no one wants to work with me. It's just that it's quiet. And then you can, and I think there's a lot to be said about people pulling together. It's like, well, why don't we do something together then? And
it's like anything in life, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
But the difficulty is just sharing it in the first place. But once you always feel better.
Yeah. And I honestly think it's actually quite a good thing as well for people to talk very openly about what they make. I'm always very open with my salary, with my friends and people and even people I work with. I tell them what I'm earning, because I think that is how you can sort of benchmark how you're doing with other people. And I've had friends who I've said, you're not on enough money. It's like, from what you're doing, we're not even in the same industry, but for your age and how long you've been there, you're getting screwed.
Yeah.
And just to that point, Steph, and I know we're not delving too much into cash flow today, but people often forget there's two levers when it comes to cash flow. Obviously, expenditure, and people try and minimise that's where they don't like the budgeting element. But people often forget that they can evaluate what they earn. And I don't say that lightly for those people listening out there, but whether you're speaking with a recruiter or some objectivity around that, understanding your value and therefore what you're worth. Doesn't mean jumping around jobs every 6 to 12 months, but I want people who are listening to not forget there are two levers, not just one.
Which brings us actually to our next money mistake, which is, because we have had a chat about this, it's loyalty. Yeah. Can we talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And loyalty is a fantastic thing. I think we all agree with that, but not in the finance space. I think most of the products that we take out, mortgages, insurance, utilities, phone bills, all those sort of things, loyalty does not pay. It goes the other way. Loyalty makes you pay. You know, those costs creep up, they get away from you. You need to switch. You need to keep an eye on it. And what we're just talking about, we need to talk about it with other people. What are you paying for this? What are you paying for that? That's how you get a good benchmark. And the savings are extraordinary. You know, if you look at a mortgage, the costs that you can save by switching every couple of years is usually a good rule of thumb. It's incredible. Even if you just call your bank and just say, hey, I've had a look in the market, you know, you can get a better rate. They'll often match it for you.
And the practicalities around that, Andrew, we've talked about before that, you know, you can essentially take 5 to 8 years off the term of your loan if you keep your bank or the bank's honest around your interest rate.
Exactly.
I think there's also another piece to be said about loyalty in the workplace. Sometimes if you're in the same job, you're going to get incremental 5-year, you know, every year that you come in on a salary and you'll get $5,000 or $10,000 increase, and that's how they want to tier you out. And sometimes it's like, well, you've actually been there for 5 years and they've given you a 20 or 30K pay rise, but the industry's improved around you, and if you jumped jobs, you'd actually be making 100K more than that. I think that there's a lot to be said about not being loyal to your work. Like, you know, there are obviously lots of, you know, places where that is not the case. But just make sure that you're checking in with the market for where you're working is really
and
important.
have that difficult conversation, right?
Yeah.
It can be intimidating, but you need to be paid what you're worth. You need to be.
To this point, and now at Tribeca we employ 27 tribe members, some of the most impressive things I've seen around annual salary review time, people will put together a presentation, they'll document the work that they've done over the year and they'll understand their value, and they bring a business-based argument. As an employer, love it.
Yeah.
That is the way to handle, inverted commas, a difficult conversation. Do the work, understand your value, and bring a business case.
I think understand your value. That's something I see all the time. It's like the people who I know who are getting screwed the most are often the people who've been in the workplace for the longest, because they're on just sort of incremental salary increases, and things have changed around them, and the business knows that you're comfortable and you're not likely to go, and they don't. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know, you've got to be noisy, and otherwise you can. You can end up paying
And in
for
saying
it.
that, the worst thing you can do is go to what I see is you can go to your employer and just ask for more, but without being able to justify it, or pull off some references around Seek that aren't comparable. But understanding it and articulating it, it also shows that you have the right business mindset, and then you are there to help people build a business.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I would never, ever do, ever, is ignore my super. You know, never. I ignore it all the time. I have no idea how much is in there. But that's another mistake that people do make, like people like myself.
Yeah. It's one we see all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not a good way to run it, because outside of your home, most likely your super is going to be your biggest asset. And the reality for most of us is we started a job and we got a default fund, you know, when you were like 14.
And that's a great reminder, Ed. Outside your family home or your home, superannuation will probably be your biggest. It's a great reminder. Yeah.
So if you think about it, we've got that default fund when we were 14 or 15 years old. You've done no research yourself, and then a lot of people just stay for that for another 40 years.
And it's so abstract at 14. At 14, it's like all I know is money I would like to be spending on dumb stuff.
Exactly.
Is not in my account. And, you know, I have no idea who this future version of me is, but I hate them for this.
Yeah, and it's insane if you think about it. If you're going to buy a new pair of shoes, you do your research, right? But then we're putting most likely our second biggest asset, just down to the chance of whoever the employer picked for us. So
I'm just going to stop you there for a second. I would never do research on shoes.
Really? That blows my mind.
It's two different kinds of people in the room here.
I'm really interested. What type of research would you do on shoes, Andrew?
Price, size,
Yep.
you know, foreign currency versus Australian dollar. Yeah.
That's so.
You got to. I mean,
you guys are a different breed.
The shoes got to fit your foot as well. Narrow shoes.
I guess.
You know.
No, that's fair. No, carry on. So do your research as one would occasionally to buy shoes.
So just on that, Steph, how would you buy shoes?
By trying them on in a shop. That's the research. Do they feel good on my foot? Yes. Purchase made. Like, I don't need to go into quantitative studies on...
You know what's funny, though? After I've done my research, then I do stick with that brand, you know? So I've been a Nike shoe buyer for many years. Yeah.
You're a pick and stick.
Yep, because then I don't have to do the research again, what? I don't know if I'm helping myself here, actually.
No, you're not.
argument. They just need to get you once and then they got you.
I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. The research has been done.
And you know, they're always listening.
The shoe world has moved, Andrew. The shoe world has moved. You don't even know what technologies are out there. You got to branch out, man. But for superannuation, genuinely though, if you have been as a 14-year-old put into whatever retail job, chucked your money in, where was easy for them. Actually look at what your returns are and how you set it up. Because like I had a very conservative investing strategy on my super for many years, which probably cost me a lot of money.
Fair to say, Andrew, how you're invested, the fees on your account, and whether you have insurance. That'd be the three big things that can dramatically affect your final retirement balance.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, and those things all
God, I didn't even know about the insurance one.
Yeah, premiums over time can really drain your balance. So life, total permanent disablement, and income protection component as well.
And look, your needs and your stage of life change those limits as well, don't they? I mean, if you've got children, obviously your needs are different from when you don't have children. If you've got a partner or no partner, when you're getting closer to retirement, it's important as well. So, these things change and it's important to be across them.
And obviously we're really passionate about this. We do geek out on this, Steph. This big piece, there's a real opportunity just to help people understand what superannuation is. One, tax-effective environment, 15 cents on the way in, largely $0 you pay in tax on the way out in pension. And then the other conversation, how it's invested. There's a big piece that we can unravel in time. I think, there's a responsibility on advisors, but obviously the government as well around financial literacy because, as Andrew said, such an important investment component.
Yeah, and I think that there'd be quite a few people around my age as well, people in their mid-30s who would have superannuation in a lot of different firms as well because it used to be whenever you got a new job, I did this. Every time I got a new job, I just didn't want to do the paperwork and I didn't want to find what my super number was. So I started up superannuation accounts. I had heaps. And if you wanted to consolidate it, it was a lot of work many years ago. But now it's actually so easy to consolidate your super. So if you think you have a lot of accounts, I urge you, if you are a lazy person like me, if I've done it, it's very, very, very low friction these days.
And how we find making this conversation more real for, say, people in their 30s whose retirement date might be in their 60s, so it's a 30-year proposition. If you had 100 or hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank account, would you be metaphorically be more invested in this conversation? They say yes, you practically do. Now, what's the conversation we want to have around superannuation? It is literally your money.
Yeah, but it feels very abstract when you're younger. So I think I do agree. Ignoring super is something that I think people are so chronically bad. I'm definitely one of them. But not all money mistakes are about accruing money, though. There are others that are actually a bit more lifestyle based. Let's talk a little bit about golden handcuffs.
Yeah, the idea of golden handcuffs is you're in a job and you're earning a certain amount of money and, you feel unable to leave that job because you can't replicate that income. But for whatever reason, you've lost satisfaction in the role. And it happens to a lot of us. It happened to me. I was an accountant and I loved accounting. I loved the numbers. Probably goes back to my shoe research.
I was about to say, it's like, what? You were an accountant?
That checks.
I let Andrew disclose that he was an accountant. That's his story to tell. That wasn't mine.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? There were signs.
Yeah, true. So, look, I was an accountant and I loved it and I loved the numbers. But then over time, you do well and you progress through and you move away from the job that you started, which is what you loved, which is your passion and brought you there in the first place. And so, we've got to be conscious of that. You've got to be conscious of that move throughout your career because those golden handcuffs are difficult then to break. Your lifestyle is matched to your income and you've got to make that change because your well-being is more important. Money's it's a great thing and it's a tool, but it shouldn't be the driver. And, and a lot of our advice, it's goals-based advice. How do you want to live your life? Where do you want to live your life? Who do you want to spend it with? What do your holidays look like? When do you want to retire?
But it's fair to say, Andrew, that people do become trapped, that they literally become trapped and they don't think there's a way out. I just need to do this job to pay for the life, but there is always another way.
Absolutely.
Whether that's house, holiday home, life's expectations, there's always a way, but people need a helping hand.
Well, we can't ignore well-being.
No,
this is the thing. Like if you're miserable, if money is making you miserable or the pursuit of money is making you miserable, then you've got to change something.
But people literally don't think there's a way out.
Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, we do. Yep. In conversations that we have with people, they can't see another way out.
That's it. And I mean, part of our job is going through that exercise, isn't it? And saying, well, what does it look like? What does your dream lifestyle look like? And then how can we finance it? So the money should be secondary to the way you want to live your life. And that's the way we always look at it.
And I think that the more we think about it, the more we can sort of live with a bit of purpose. Have you seen people make drastic changes based off these conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. The key thing is, around potentially where people live and they might have, a mortgage that they're struggling to pay, or they have to have that job to support the cash flow. When they go on a goal-setting journey, particularly, longer term than medium term, what's truly important to them, they create the change and they might sell that house. They might live somewhere else. But what was really important and what they were doing suddenly isn't to them anymore because they've placed greater emphasis on their own well-being.
It's funny because it's when you think about money mistakes, you do go to ideas of, stuff like scams or, getting caught. But it is actually sort of assessing what role money has to play in your life, and if it's controlling too much, or if it's making you unhappy, or if you're too stuck in an area you never really actually wanted to live in.
Yeah, and it's stressful.
And I think, Steph, it controls people a lot more than they actually know and think, whereas you can flip the tables on it and put yourself in charge of money, and it works for you.
The thing about making good plans is that the unexpected can happen and derail all that good work. It's important to be prepared, isn't it? It
is. And that old saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. It's a truism. It really makes sense. And we do need to be prepared for those things that can happen to us. And, we talked about it a little bit earlier about insurance and having that in place to make sure that, our lifestyle's protected, our loved ones are protected. If something was to happen to you, it's a financial shock, and there's a range of things that can happen. But, usually we're talking about sickness, injury, even death, a bit more to talk about. But, we have to be prepared. Insurance is a great thing to have as part of your lifestyle. We all have it. It might be your car, your home. You have to insure yourself and your employment income as well.
And what we see a lot, Andrew, where people are far more inclined to take the travel insurance, the home and the car insurance, but don't reassess their need for life or income protection very often. And further to that around that, Steph, as well, the estate planning. We don't see anywhere near enough people that have current wills or powers of attorneys in place. Might have got it done when they were first married, but now they have business entities, family trusts. Their estate planning needs to become more sophisticated, whether it's I'll get to it or the she'll be right factor, but it's a key component to that risk management strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a property and my estate would be very out of date. But, I really feel like that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Everyone else in my life, they can squabble over that. I won't be there. Good luck.
We hear it more often than not, and I understand where that's coming from. When we do, but when we hear that from in a partnered couple, we turn the tables and go, okay, so that's how you feel, but what about your partner that's also sat at the table? You can either take care of this and have a will in a top drawer or have a trusted professional, or you can just leave an SH1T show. What do you want to do? Generally, the question goes to the partner, the surviving partner.
Yeah, and the surviving partner wants to slap them, I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm sure that goes down really badly.
And then we make the referral to the estate planner.
Yeah, okay, that does make sense. I kind of like the idea of having like a little treasure map. You've got to like go through a few exercises and find the will. And
you got to make them work for it.
Yeah, make them work for it.
Okay.
I suppose that's probably not the right attitude to take.
It's okay.
I'll agree. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing the mistakes of others. We will, as always, Ryan and I continue to be perfect.
No worries.
If you want more money advice, then do make sure that you follow this podcast so you never miss an episode, and we will see you very soon. Advice given in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to influence decisions about investing or financial products. Our listeners should always seek their own professional advice that considers their own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.